Israel, Shalom. First, I want to start by giving all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors into the elders, apostles, and bishops of GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach, and edify. And Shalom into hopefully like Akim and Akwat in this house of the faith. My name is Yeshaya from the Phoenix AZ Church. Yahweh Tazam, I'm going to make an edifying video pursuant to identify the treasures of that old nigga. All right. So check it. We're going to go to Matthew 6. We're going to skip over to 21. And it reads, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." You know, you got that treasure. And actually, you can grab some etymology on this treasure. It says, jewels, wealth accumulated, spoils hoarded. All right, so where you know, basically that bank, you know, where you keep all of your most valuable things, that's your treasure. You know, your treasure is this truth. You know, you come into this truth and you were reborn, right? You're reborn and you no longer think the way that you used to think. You are of a new fashion. You operate in a totally different playing field. You know, the scriptures talk about you are a new creature, right? You come into this truth, you will be a new creature. You know, you don't do the old things that you used to do. I actually get that one. It says, 2 Corinthians 5:17, "Therefore, if any man be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new." All right, so all things are become new. You know, you no longer have the same treasures that old nigga had, man. You don't fucking want the same things that he wants. You don't do the same things that he does. You're a new creature. You move different. You breathe different. You walk different. You talk different. All right? 1 Peter 4:1, "For as much then as a Mashiach has suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourself likewise with the same mind, for ye have suffered in the flesh and had ceased from sin." Now we arm ourselves with the like mind of Yahweh Shai. All right? And with that being said, you know, we be given the spirit to have this truth as our treasure. Verse 2, "That he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lusts of man." Because the flesh of the lusts of man, that's that old nigga's treasure, man. That's what he enjoys. But to the will of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, because we, you know, have our eyes set on the kingdom. Have our eyes set on, you know, rehearsing the righteous acts. Doing the whole duty of man. That Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 spirit. You know? It says, "For the time past of our lives, for the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles when we walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revelling, banqueting, and abominable idolatries, wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of you." All right? So for the time past, you know, that's that old nigga's treasure. Lasciviousness, lusts, excess of wine, revelling, banqueting, and abominable idolatries. I said old nigga. You know, a lot of bros when they was in the world, you know, lasciviousness, Salaki, I'm struggling saying that word. You know, Jake, you know, loves the world. They love the things that are in the world. And the scriptures tell you in that 1 John, you know, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. You know, your old treasure was getting a nice house maybe. You know, living that American dream, or your old treasure was being the biggest motherfucking, you know, Chicano in the barrio, or being the biggest nigga on the block, all right, or even being a crip walking Gadite. You know, believe it or not, Gad be gangbanging, and it just looks so awkward, but that's besides the point. You know, your biggest, you know, objective was the lust of men. You know, fucking committing adultery, going around the city. You know, dealing with all these different types of fucked up women, or excess of wine. You know, alcoholism. That's the old nigga's treasure. You know, it's the thing that Jake does, man, and they do it on high levels. You know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, you know, drinking or having women. You know, but when you come into this truth, your eyes are set on Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and the flesh is way afterwards. All right, you know how to righteously do those things. You know how to balance those things. But that old nigga, he would do it to a disgusting rate. You know, being in an industry where I work at, you know, I see Jake, and I see what got them to their point that they're at with their health. I'll have Jake tell me that they used to drink a full pack of 30 fucking beers a day. Every single day they would have a 30 pack, 32 pack on top of, other alcohol drinks that they would have. I'll have Jake tell me, that when they were younger, they used to just run around and do all kinds of adultery shit all the fucking time. It's like this. They woke up and the first thing the nigga was thinking to do was fuck some fucked up shit. He woke up, didn't even think about getting some water, brushing his teeth. He's just already thinking about wickedness. And that's that old nigga's treasure, man. And we all come from different walks of life. Maybe, in the world, you was more focused on the American dream. Maybe you was a wacky-tacky Christian. You was focused on a nice house, maybe even a white bitch, and a nice truck, going to college and setting up a nice, spot for your family here in Babylon the Great. The soon-to-be lake of fire that's going to be ate up by these ICBMs. Maybe that's what you was thinking. That's that old treasure, all right? That old nigga used to yearn for and to want so badly, all right? And it says they think it's strange that you walk not with them to the same excess of writing, speaking evil of you. So the shit that you used to do and the people that used to do it with, now think it's strange that you come into this truth, and they let you go. But guess what? Yahweh Shem Yahushai accept you. If the world reject you, Yahweh Shem Yahushai accept you, Fuck the world. The world love its own. But at the same time, now that you've crossed that line and you understand the condition of the battle, this is chiefly the point that I wanted to get is identify the shit that you used to want and make sure that you're purging out as much of that as possible. Think about it like this. The scriptures say, examine thyself. Examine thyself. Sometimes, you might think that you're doing better than you actually are. And that's why you got to have that humble spirit, to always ask the Lord and pray to the Lord to have you, walk the right path, going in the right direction. Because how do you think niggas like Alizé, how do you think niggas like fucking all the bug outs all across Israel get to the point that they're at? Pride. They think that they're fucking doing amazing. They think that, they got it. He even made a video. He was like, I'm anointed, but even stuttered when he said he was anointed. You don't believe that. So, have that humble spirit and understand that, we come from a very wicked past and we come into this truth and we're imperfect. We're trying to strive for perfection and we're truly going to be changed and be made perfect when the Lord comes back. But right now, we're in this flesh. The Apostle Gabar says, he said in a video of one of the walking talks that he's made, he said, any man that's in his flesh is subject to falling away, no matter who you are. All right. So that's why it's so essential to make sure that you identify those things. Let's check this right quick. Sirach 19:1. A laboring man that is given to drunkenness shall not be rich, but he that contemneth the small things shall fall little by little. So the little details matter. You have to consider the little details, the little psychological things that you might not be accounting for. In the world, you might have been, Mr. Bravado, big top guy. And you denounce all that shit when you come into the truth and you become a new man. But at the same time, you still have personality traits about you and psychological things that you're going to have to check to make sure that you do better, in this truth. Because we're striving for greatness. We're striving for we giving diligence to make our calling and election sure. We're not trying to half-ass this truth. We're trying to do our best, the absolute best. All right. And with that being said, you gotta know yourself. You gotta fucking know yourself, man. And there's so many challenging things about it, man. Me personally, I know that in the world, I had anger issues growing up. And it wasn't in the world for too long, because I got introduced to this faith when I was around like 14 and a half, 15. But that time before, I remember I had very bad anger issues. And when I crossed the line to this truth and being being just an absolute newborn baby, there's certain situations that will be presented upon me. And I just couldn't walk with wisdom because my flesh had that fucking burning ass rage. And whenever I was a little fucking hothead, thinking that shit's gonna fly. But as you mature in this faith, Yahweh Shem Yahushai gives you the spirit to see that, hey, you got to get rid of that. Hey, you can't be like that anymore. These are not the fruits of the spirit. If it isn't of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, you should be purging it the fuck out. All right. If it's not of the fruits of the spirit, Galatians, it talks about the fruits of the spirit. What is that? Galatians 5. It's like you. I'm gonna get it real quick. Oh yeah, real quick too, right here. This is a good precept. A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. All right, so you know that old nigga, those old values, those old things that are instilled upon you, you know, could still be left in you. For example, like you wanted to be the biggest nigga on the block. Think about the psychological effects of how you think as a man and how that translates to when you cross the line and now you're in this truth. But, you know, there's still bits and pieces of that old nigga that's still left in you that wanted to be the biggest nigga on the block. Say you walking down the street, and like someone fucking Jake look at you all crazy because they're going to look at you because you got the spirit of light on you and these fucking demons hate it. Right? They absolutely hate it. So sometimes you're going to be across, you know, just walking down the street and this Jake just like absolutely hates you. And you don't even know why, but he really just hates you. How shy. You walk in the spirit of that, you know, you got to be able to, know that, hey, man, I'm not that old nigga who I used to be. I'm not going to sit there and try to be confrontational with this nigga. He's just a demon. You're going to walk right past his ass. Motherfucker try to pull up on you. All right, nigga, I'm calling the cops. nigga, fuck you. You know, we ain't about to have no nigga moment like that Boondocks episode. We better have a nigga moment. Oh, wait, I'm white. I'll just call the cops. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you know, this is, you know, it's not our lot to be fucking dwelling with this world and doing the shit that they do. But that old nigga, those old values and those old treasures that you used to have, you know, sometimes are still left in you and it may affect you. And you got to try to purge those things out. You know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. But, yeah, so we're going to get this right here. Galatians 5:17, for the flesh lusteth against the spirit and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another so that you cannot do the things that you would. So the things of the flesh, you know, that the fucking things that old nigga like doing are contrary to the things that you do as a king and a, you know, a judge in this truth. You come into this truth and you're introduced to the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and you become a follower of light, righteousness, and life. That old nigga's dark death and fucking demise and misery. They're contrary. Just like it says in John 1:5. You know, light cannot comprehend darkness. Or no, Salakia. Darkness cannot comprehend light. When light shines upon darkness, it can't comprehend it. So, yes, they walk contrary to one another. You ain't going to be some... What does that say? I think even Alizé said this too. He's like he's a Hoover gang Crip, but also in his truth. Man, that shit don't mix. That don't mix at all. Right? That does not mix even a little bit, and we just proved that. But reading on, it says, "But if you led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest. Are these adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, Salakia, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulation, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies, envying, murder, drunkenness, revelings, and such like." And those are a lot of things that you know in the world they commonize on low levels. You know, they say like, oh, don't do this and don't do that. You know, don't be an adulterous person. You know, don't be, you know, a hateful person. But at the whole time, this world is hypocritical. They do all of this shit. Everything here that is listed, the world does it all on a fucking maximum level, and they all normalize it. They normalize it to a certain degree. They accept it to a certain degree, right? But you come into this truth, you don't accept any of that shit. You know, the scriptures tell you, you know, a man that loveth the Lord hateth evil. You know, you don't like none of this, all right? We don't walk in the spirit of fucking, you know, the flesh and of wickedness, man. We're trying to walk and rehearse the righteous acts and do our best to walk in the spirit of and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, which is righteousness and truth. All right? Reading on, it says, of which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom. You're not going to inherit the kingdom walking in that way, because the elect don't do those type of things. The elect are not going to do those type of things. The 2/3 do these type of things, but the elect, the 144,000 ruling class, aren't going to be moving in this type of spirit. And those guys get found out through the spirit, and they get embarrassed. All right, the Lord puts them the fuck out, man, and he casts all that wickedness abroad. So look at yourself, man. Think about yourself. Are some of these things that happen right here, which this is like the treasure of a wicked motherfucker, man? Lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance. These are the treasures of that old nigga. right? Do you have any of those things in you still? Look at it on a deep level. Surface level, no, I don't do these things. But on a very deep level, man, read yourself, meditate. Think about these things. It is so important. Or do some of these things apply to you? And that's when it comes to this truth of knowing yourself. The apostles always talk about that, especially the apostles of hard. Watching videos, you got to know yourself. That's one thing that Jake forgets to do. They like to be up in everybody else's business, knowing what everybody else is doing. But they don't fucking know themselves, man. They don't know themselves and they don't do that shit. They don't think about it. But really, man, in its truth, we are striving to greatness. We're striving to give this our best shot. So it would behoove you to actually think about, hey, is any of this in me? And if it is, praise to the Lord for the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua to smite that fucking shit out of you. Reading on. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And they that are Hamashiachs have crucified the flesh with the affections of the lust. So they that are of the Lord have crucified these things. Put it the fuck away, man. So think about that in your walk, man. Right? Think about those this list of things. Identify the treasures of that old nigga, the things that you used to value in the world, line it up with the scriptures. And if it still pertains to you and you got those things in you, Lord willing, purge as much of that out as possible. And the Lord, things take time, there's a difference between wickedness and things that need to get dealt with that are just kind of, that you should be doing better at, and you see that as you mature and progress in this truth. When you first come into this truth, you're a novice. And you don't move the same way that you move 10, 15, 20 years into this truth. I don't move like the apostles move. But why is that? It takes time. And it takes the Lord ultimately, So identify these things in yourself and make sure you're not moving in that fashion and moving in the fashion of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, which is listed right here too. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Right? So moving in that spirit, contrary to the spirit of the flesh. But Yahweh Tazah, this lesson was edifying. I want to lastly give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakak Badash, Shalom, and Galek to Yah, Akim, and Agwan.